You've found Wickett on Wisconsin, your one-stop podcast for all things Packers, Brewers, Bucks, and the rest of your favorite teams from all over the state of Wisconsin. We're powered by Wisconsin Sports Heroics, online at wisportsheroics.com and the Wisconsin Podcast Association. And now, here's your host, Mike Wickett.
Yo. All right, so had to jump in, do an emergency pod after word has come down that there is now a charge against former Green Bay Packers wide receiver Davante Adams, now with the Las Vegas Raiders. And this is Wickett on Wisconsin, not Wickett on Vegas or Wickett on Nevada. But there's always going to be a connection between Packers fans, rightfully so, Packers fans and Davante Adams. And whether it's, ESPN totaling up Davante's receiver numbers and comparing them to Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, and the rest, which I think is dumb. But Davante Adams brought me a lot of joy as a fan. Probably, as if you're a Packers fan, brought you a lot of joy. One of the greatest Packers of all time. And you're gonna. I would hope you would root for him. I know there are probably some people that are out there that are mad about the way that things ended, that he wanted out. But to me, Davante's always part of the family. And when things are done, he'll be in the Packer Hall of Fame and maybe in the Ring of Honor and all those kinds of things. So when the Davante Adams story happened on Monday night into Tuesday, and now I'm recording this on a Wednesday after Monday Night Football, it's like I've had so many thoughts run through my head in the last half hour. It's like I could tweet them all out or I can put them on a podcast and the video. If you're watching the video, hey, what's up? So if you have not seen it, maybe you've been under a rock. After Monday Night Football, Davante Adams shoved a dude, apologized shortly after, tweeted out an apology, and since then it's gotten worse. The guy is now, Davante Adams is now being charged with a misdemeanor assault for the shove. Now let's back things up and just go through what happened, because this is such a complicated issue that I didn't think was going to come out of a Monday Night Football game that was great. So at the end of the game, the last two times we saw Davante Adams, when the Raiders had the ball, there was the play on the sideline where he had possession, or he didn't have possession, but he had his feet down, and then when he did have possession, he was already out of bounds, and he was already upset about that call, even though it was the right call, as the Raiders were trying to make their comeback. And then on the fourth down play, the final play, Davante Adams and Hunter Renfrow ran into each other. Whether one was running the wrong route, both were running the wrong route, I don't know. It looked like Davante was getting ready to run a post route, similar to one that was the 58-yard touchdown that he had earlier in the night. And he runs into Renfrow, Carr throws the ball, overthrow, game over. Raiders are now 1-3. And you could see the frustration on Adams. He runs off the field and he slams his helmet down, and he's angry because I think he's angry because of the play, he's angry because of the loss, and he's angry going into the bye now that they've got one win in, whether 1-4, 1-3, whatever they are. And you can see the anger building up, not just with what happened, but expectations were high in Vegas. Everybody knows how great the AFC West was supposed to be. And I'm going to sneeze at some point here. I'm sorry. But everyone knew how great the West was supposed to be. And the Raiders, even though I thought the Raiders were going to be the worst team in the division, the Raiders thought of themselves, and Davante thought of himself going there with new head coach Josh McDaniels and the connection with his college buddy and Derek Carr. They expected to compete for the AFC West, and they thought they had the talent to get to the Super Bowl. And they still may, but they're the worst team in the division. I would maybe listen to the argument that the Broncos are worse. I think Nathaniel Hackett and Russell Wilson have been a bomb so far. And it was almost as if, because they have a bye this week, it was almost as if all of the we're going to prove you wrong frustration was boiling over at that moment. They were up 17-0 at that point, or at one point of the game on Monday night on the road at the first place Kansas City Chiefs. That evaporated. And when the play doesn't happen, you see the emotion out of Davante Adams. Fast forward another 4 minutes or whatever, as they're walking off the field, Davante is going to the tunnel, and somebody from a camera crew or a broadcast crew or something runs or walks, is moving in front of Davante as he's going one way, and a guy is kind of coming at him at the same time. Now, Davante said he jumped in front of him. if you just look at it, it's two guys going at the same direction. Or two guys meeting in the same point, one going one direction, one going perpendicular to him. It's the same situation as if you're at a bar and you bump into somebody. But the difference is Davante didn't just bump into him. Davante two-hand shivered him and threw him down. And I am in no way justifying what Davante Adams did. Davante cannot do that to a civilian, a non-football player. Heck, you can't really do it to a football player, but a non-football player, a normie like you, like me, an everyday Joe, you cannot. I don't care how emotional you are, how mad you are about the last play, how mad you are about the first half of the season, how mad you are about everything. You cannot shove an innocent bystander. You can't push that person to the ground. You can't. So now, a couple days later, we find out that Davante Adams is being charged with a misdemeanor. Now, in the police report, the dude, the civilian, is claiming that there was distress, a headache, and a, quote, possible mild concussion. A possible mild concussion. Okay? It's fine. This guy is allowed to do whatever he wants. I was not in that situation. You were not in that situation. He was in that situation. He is allowed to do whatever he wants. But I'm going to tell you, if you've never been on the field at the end of a football game, and I have in my career, I've been on the field at the end of baseball games, and the end of basketball games, the end of football games, both college and pro. And the way that it works is about 5 minutes or so, all the members of the media, and the press box at an NFL stadium is very big. About 5 minutes to go, NFL media jumps in an elevator or they walk down or however they get there, they all have to get down to the field so that they can have access to players either on the field, and maybe in this era you can't do that, maybe the COVID era, maybe, I don't know, but they talk to players on the field, or they go to the tunnel that takes them to the locker room or the interview room. I mean, I've done this at Lambeau. I've done this at several stadiums in the NFL. Just that's how it works. So there are a lot of people on the field after a football game that may not have been there before a football game and definitely are not there during a football game. And again, I am in no way saying what Davante Adams did was okay. But there's a lot of people. There's a lot of commotion. And out of Davante Adams, there's a lot of emotion. Davante Adams needed to have a cooler head. And I know that Davante Adams is a good dude. You know, as a Packers fan, Davante Adams is a good guy. All right? He has to keep a cooler head at that moment. But it's so impossible to say that as a guy sitting behind a microphone who's never played a snap in the National Football League to be like, well, you got to keep your cool. I know you just lost the game. I know you just watched the division get even harder and harder to compete in. The AFC even getting harder and harder to compete in. Everybody's saying you shouldn't have left Green Bay. You just ran into your own teammate on the final play, what could have been a huge story. You had 2 touchdowns. You played such a great game, and it was all for naught. And then here's guys like me and national radio guys and TV guys saying, well, Davante needed to keep a cooler head. Maybe. Definitely. I'm not in that situation. So when the dude walks in front of him, Davante, that was a powder keg situation. That was it. He was built up, and this doesn't justify his behavior, but it was built up, and that was the spark. And he explodes on the innocent bystander dude, the camera guy, the mic guy, the boom mic guy, whatever the guy's job was. And it was wrong. 100% wrong. And I'll say this. Would I fine Davante Adams? Absolutely. The NFL should fine Davante Adams. Would I suspend Davante Adams? Absolutely. 1 game, whatever the rule is, 2 games, whatever the rule is, Davante Adams should miss some time. But if I am that guy that got shoved by Davante Adams, am I going to press charges and file against Davante Adams for what happened? No. And I know you're going to say, well, Wickett, you're saying that because, you're behind the microphone right now and it wasn't you. No, it's because that story I told you. I've been on football fields. I've been on baseball fields. I've been on NBA floors. I know how what kind of havoc it is. at the end of a game when you've got all the players, both teams, all the media, all the trainers, all the coaching staff, everybody funnels in. It's chaos. It's chaos. You need to be aware of your surroundings. The dude needed to be aware of his surroundings. And I'll tell you, as somebody who's been on the field with football players before, you got to keep your head on a swivel, especially after a game when you've got emotion running through a football game like that. And I've never seen a football game where the crowd raised the emotion level of a football game like the Arrowhead crowd did on Monday night. I've never seen that before. Never have I seen that before. So you have to have your head on a swivel. And this, I swear to you, this was an accident. Now, it's more than an accident because Davante still pushed him. You don't just walk around doing this. This is you choose to do that. You push him. It's more than an accident, but it's less than a misdemeanor. It's less than a felony. It's less than a crime. It was an emotional moment. And if that was me on the ground, I would have asked for an apology. Maybe after Davante goes to the locker room, I would have been thrilled if he would have called me or come to meet me at my office or whatever to apologize. But there's no way I'm suing Davante Adams. And maybe he's just trying to get his payday. Maybe that dude knows that Davante will pay him $100,000 to go away. Maybe they settle this out of court and it becomes a $500,000 and he drops all charges. I don't know. Davante's loaded. He just signed the mega contract with the Raiders. But in no way do I press charges because I've been in that situation. Now, I've never been two-hand shivered by an all-pro wide receiver before, but there's no way I'm pressing charges against Davante Adams. This guy is, I think he's in the wrong. I do. I'm not saying Davante Adams was in the wrong. I think both guys are wrong. One much more wrong. Davante much more wrong. He should get fined. He should get suspended. He should not be charged with a misdemeanor assault. It's ridiculous. And then there's this part of my brain, and this is where I go, if this was a game against a non-rival, don't tell me your head didn't go here. If this was a game against a non-rival, do you think that would matter? Do you think that factors in to whether or not charges are getting filed against the other team's best receiver? Sit on that for a second. Think about it. I want to remind you about my friends over at Great Lakes Dragaway, one of our great sponsors. I know my guy Roy over at Great Lakes Dragaway. He and I were conversing about this on Twitter. The snow's not ready to fly yet. It might soon. But until then, Great Lakes Dragaway is where you, if you're a gearhead, if you're a racing fan, if you just need some good family fun entertainment here in the fall, Great Lakes Dragaway in Union Grove, Wisconsin, the fastest quarter mile in the Midwest. They're a wonderful sponsor of the podcast, and we appreciate that. They've got nights for everybody, bikes, hot rods, trucks, nitrous nights, and more. The entire schedule, GreatLakesDragaway.com. And like I said, they're open till the snow flies. And then when the snow flies, they close until it thaws. But when it does thaw, you're going to have somebody on your Christmas list that's going to want to go back and check out all the amazing machines, they have going down the track. So if you have that racing head, that gearhead on your list, a Great Lakes Dragaway gift card makes the perfect Christmas gift. GreatLakesDragaway.com. And thanks to those guys for their tremendous support. They've always been good friends and good supporters of mine in my career, so I really appreciate that. So back to this rivalry thing. Chiefs, Raiders, hated rivals. If you're a Packers fan, you know, Bears, Vikings. Like, what if this was not against a team from the AFC West that the Chiefs hate? What if this was the Lions? What if this was in Detroit? What if the Raiders lost to the Lions coming off the field and a camera dude that worked for somebody, because I don't know what this guy really does for a living, but I immediately went here, that this is a Chiefs fan trying to drum up support from Kansas City for the pain and suffering he took from getting shoved by Davante Adams. Is he trying to stick it to the other team? You know, the Lions have no quarrel with the Raiders other than the one time every so often that they actually play. Do you think if some dude who works for a Lions broadcast team or whatever works in Detroit, freelances out of Detroit, got shoved down, you know, would he have the same reaction to file charges against Davante Adams? I don't know. I know that might be petty and stupid, but we do a lot of petty and stupid stuff in this country. And that's why I believe that's a 2% chance. Doesn't mean it's a 0% chance. It means this dude is possibly a big-time Chiefs fan in Kansas City and wants to stick it to the Raiders, their hated rival. Because those Chiefs-Raiders games are violent if you're in those stands. I mean, if you ever go to a game at Arrowhead, sit in the lower bowl during Raider week, you don't want to sit up above. It can get nasty over there. So those are my thoughts on Davante Adams. Again, I'll say it again. Would I fine Davante Adams? 100%. To whatever the max amount is. Would I suspend Davante Adams? Sure. 1 game for sure. 2 games maybe, or whatever the rule says. You cannot push a civilian. But would I press charges against Davante Adams if I was the guy that got pushed? Absolutely not. No, in no way would I do that. Shout out to our other sponsor. If you are looking for some help with your digital marketing, or if you need to start marketing your company, your small business, your medium-sized business, and you want to do it digitally, my guy Nick Packard in Franklin, Wisconsin, nickpackard.com, he's the guy for you. He can up your SEO. If you're like, Wickett, what's my SEO? Well, it stands for search engine optimization, meaning if people type in whatever you're selling into the Google button bar and they hit search, how long till we get to your name, your company, your business? Well, that's where Nick Packard can help, all right? They're going to come up with the best ad strategies, make sure your email, your social network is working correctly so we get your name up at the top of the list, all right? nickpackard.com. That's nickpackard.com. And the cool thing is you're going to work, directly with Nick. No layers of employees below. No, it's you and Nick, one-on-one. And he's fractional, which means you only pay for the time that you need with Nick. If you're a small business or you're a medium-sized business and you want to up your digital marketing game, give my guy Nick Packard a shot. He's going to give you a free digital ecosystem assessment just for listening to the podcast. All you got to do is say, hey, Nick, I heard you on Wickett on Wisconsin. Can you tell me what's my website like? What's my social like? What's my email marketing like? You can sign up directly on his website, NP Connect. The marketing agency redefined. Online today, nickpackard.com. That's nickpackard.com. All right, that's it for the podcast. Again, Davante Adams, I think you'll always have a special place in Packers fans' hearts. This has been a real frustrating year to watch if you're a Packers fan. Watching Davante, even though he's had some individual success, watching him struggle with the Raiders. Some people find some joy in it. I don't. I'm a fan of Davante Adams. I'll always be a fan of number 17. And so I just, watching this story develop out of Monday night into Tuesday as we record this, it hurts. It sucks. It sucks. All right, that's it. Thanks for checking out the podcast. Everything you need, wisportsheroics.com. Make sure you tell a friend about the podcast. Make sure you rate, subscribe the podcast. We'd love to grow the podcast. I need your help to do that, so thank you very much for everyone's support thus far. My name is Mike Wickett. This has been Wickett on Wisconsin. As always, go Pack Go, go Bucks, and go Brewers.